What's up guys, I'm Darcy, aka Darcizzle, and I am a South Florida gardener. Gardening and growing my own food is a huge passion of mine, and I've been container gardening for over a decade. Today, I'm going to show you how to start your own container garden anywhere in the world. I think everyone should have the opportunity to get into gardening, whether you want to grow beautiful flowers or harvest your own fruits and vegetables to eat. You can literally grow any plant in a container. And just to show you what I have in my outside deck right here, which is about a 10-foot by 30-foot area, I have everything you could think of. Starting with beautiful zinnias. We have roses, hybrid tea roses, blueberries, even have herbs like turmeric and ginger in pots. Have dahlias, beautiful dahlias growing in containers, and a wide variety of pineapples. I'm big into pineapple varieties right now. We also have in the back corner dragon's breath and ganzia, which is an amazing flower, and just about anything thrives in these pots. If you live in an apartment or high-rise with small balcony, or you have a small patio or deck, don't worry, you can still container garden. Now I'm going to talk about the 5 simple yet cheap ways that you can get your container garden started. And we're going to start with the pots. The pots are the most important part that you need to figure out what you want to grow your plants in. So there's a couple different pots that I like to use, but for instance, a lot of people know of the nursery pots or the plastic pots. And these are great. This is a 3-gallon pot that I use for a lot of my gardening to transplant plants. But the deal with this is it's plastic. Number one thing with any pot, by the way, you want to make sure you have drainage holes is super important. The water needs to be able to drain out. If you don't have holes, you're in big trouble. Your plant is going to die and get root rot. So I like to use nursery pots when I'm starting to transplant up. We have different sizes here. So that's up to you. These are lightweight and easy to handle. Next pot up, they have the clay or terracotta pots. These are great as well because they're very porous. So when you put the soil in there and you water your plant, the actual clay absorbs the water and then the plant is able to reabsorb water back out of the clay pot. But it loses water at a fast rate. It's also, they're pretty heavy. So the heavier you go, that's harder to handle for you to move around for portability wise. And then also, you guys up in the north, you know that these are very brittle and they actually freeze in the winter months, and then that makes them more susceptible to cracking and breaking. So really these are not my preference when it comes to me and my gardening. For me down here in South Florida, we also pay attention to the color of the pot. The color of the pot is very important. Black pots, especially in the heat of our summer months, are pretty much bad for certain types of plants because it'll actually cook the roots inside the black pot. So I try to use lighter colored pots. The next version of pot is the fabric grow bag, which I love. These are what basically like 90% of my plants are in these fabric grow bags, and they're super lightweight. They have handles on the side. This is actually a 10-gallon grow bag, and when I can, I get the light colored ones because again, the sun does cook them in the summer months. This is actually a 15-gallon grow pot. I couldn't find it in a lighter color, so I have black. But these are my go-tos. These are the top 3 that you need to think about, but for me, the fabric grow bag is the way to go. Step number 2, potting soil mix or your container mix that you're going to use here for your containers. There's a couple reasons why I like this method and the container gardening method. Number 1 is because I can custom make the soil blend to that plant's liking instead of just planting in the ground. So I can actually make it specific, more acidic if it's an acidic plant, less acidic if it doesn't like the acid. So that's why I like to container garden. Also here in Florida, you know, we have very sandy, our soil quality just sucks. It's very sandy and we have a limestone rock underneath us. So it's just not ideal for planting in the garden or in the ground. And I would have to amend quite a bit of ground in order to do that. So that's why I stick to container gardens. So if you don't want to get into mixing your own soil, one of the number 1 things you can do is just go buy a high quality potting mix. This Happy Frog from Fox Farm is a great brand. I don't think they sell it locally. I actually bought this online, but depending on where you are in the United States or in the world, you probably can get it locally. But just some high quality potting mix if you don't feel like mixing stuff on your own. Something like this is going to be go-to for most container plants. Now, like I said, for me, I specifically make my own soil custom made to that plant that I'm putting in a container. So let me show you the 3 things you want to use, which is pretty cheap and easy. You can actually find it on my Amazon store, link down below to exactly the products that I use. So we have buckets already filled here that we are going to transplant a plant into. And just to show you what you can use, let's see, here we go. So to make your own simple container blend, starting with sphagnum peat moss. This is a great way to start off your container garden. I like the structure of it. You can also interchange it with coconut coir, and coconut coir is an inert soilless media. This works great too, but I would recommend peat moss. Peat moss is also on a little on the acidic side, so you're going to use 1/3 of peat moss or coconut coir. Second part of your soil mix, you're going to want to use compost or cow manure. I have black cow here. This works great, so I have 1/3 of that poured into there as well, but this is going to provide the organic material that your plant needs in order to feed the root system, and the peat moss is to help with water retention and also the soil structure. And the last part of your soil recipe that is going to be fairly inexpensive to make your own is you're going to either want to use pumice, which we have right here, or rice hulls. Why do I recommend that over perlite? A lot of you guys are going to think of perlite. I would say avoid perlite because perlite is actually a volcanic glass that is not a sustainable resource, and it takes a lot of energy and mining equipment in order to make this. And once it's in the soil, it's there for good. It doesn't break down. It doesn't feed your plants at all. And this just actually compresses and breaks down over time. So it's not good. I do have a bag here that I use on occasion if I need to, but really I highly recommend that you get yourself pumice rock, which is lava rock. This is volcanic glass, but this is dense lava rock, and this is not going to break down. It'll take a long, long time. It holds a lot of water and helps aerate the soil and the roots to allow oxygen through your soil mixture. So pumice is great. Also, another great alternative is rice hulls. Rice hulls actually feed the soil and break down over time, providing silica and phosphorus to your soil, which benefits your plants. And it's a sustainable resource and takes a lot less energy to create here in the United States. Our third step is the transplant stage, how to actually take a plant maybe you buy at the store and put into a larger container. First, I'm going to mix the soil parts that we just talked about for the custom blend. And this concrete bin mixer container from Home Depot is great. All right, custom soil blend is nice and mixed, it's nice and fluffy now. And I'm not using too much soil because we're gonna be using a 3-gallon container to transplant a plant. And now let's quickly talk about fertilizers, because a plant in a container is gonna need more fertilizer because it's solely restricted to what you give it inside its initial pot. So over time, that is one of the things you need to do with container plants, especially when growing vegetables and fruits, is you need to fertilize them more often compared to ones in the ground. So there's a couple different options. There's organic and non-organic fertilizers. Now for me, I really like the Dr. Earth brand, which is a organic fertilizer. I use this exotic blend specifically for pineapples. By the way, guys, I know you saw my pineapples. I have a huge pineapple video dedicated to that soil mixture. You just can click over it down in the description below, or just Google or just type in YouTube Darcizzle pineapple, and those videos will pop up if you're interested in that custom soil recipe. Totally different than what we just mixed, by the way. So that is for pineapples, exotic plants as well. Gives you instructions exactly on the back what to do, so it's fairly simple. We also have their organic all-purpose fertilizer, and that's NPK. That's what the numbers stand for. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and I forget the other one at the moment. We also got kelp meal here. We have different amendments to add to the soil. And like I said, depending on what a plant likes, we have one for more acidic. You can add these to it. That's for like my miracle berry plants and for blueberries. And you also have a lime, and you can add that to ones that need more alkaline soil, that don't like it very acidic. So there's all these different amendments you can add. So for our plant today, we're gonna take this back over there. This is a plant we're gonna use. It's a beautiful coleus. And I'm gonna use Dr. Earth's rose and flower fertilizer mixed with a little bit of organic bunny poop. I have a pet rabbit, so I collect her poop to use in the mixture of soil. It actually really works well. I firmly believe in it. So it's all organic right now. You also have the water soil soluble stuff like Jack's fertilizer, and I do use this on my citrus trees. I have a grapefruit tree, mango tree, and I use them on some of my pineapples as well. So Jack's is also another great brand, but do what works best for you. Use a water soluble one. This is not organic, or do a little more work and use one that's organic and mix it into the soil. All right, so we're gonna add the fertilizer to the soil base right now so it's mixed up really well. The initial soil that we just mixed, it actually does have some kind of food in there for the plants, but over time that's gonna evaporate quickly because again, it's just solely based on the pot size that the plant is relying on for to feed itself and to feed its roots. I'm also gonna shake in the rabbit droppings from my rabbit, and she's spoiled. She eats all kinds of great fresh things from our fridge, carrots and parsley and Brussels sprouts, so I know this is good for my soil, and that's gonna break down over time too and feed my plant. And I know a lot of you guys are gonna tell me fish carcasses are great too, but that's more for the ground. I would never put them in a container. They'll just never properly degrade down and also attract critters. I have tried fish carcasses because you guys know me, I like to fish. But fish carcasses seem to always get dug up even by the animals at night, the raccoons and whatnot. So fish emulsion is also good. I didn't mention that for fertilizers. But again, Dr. Earth, I really love this brand. I use it for everything. Mix it up really nicely and just follow the directions on the back. It's very, very simple. I've decided on a 3-gallon nursery pot for my coleus. I don't want it to get too massive, so I think a 3-gallon is gonna be perfect to keep it at a normal size and I can enjoy it. So this coleus has been in this pot way too long. You can tell immediately right here, the roots are popping through the bottom. That means it's time for it to be repotted or transplanted into a bigger pot. All right, I'm gonna show you a transplanting trick too. And the 10-gallon grow bags we mentioned earlier, I really save those for my pineapple plants because they dry out so fast. And bromeliads don't like to have wet feet, so that's why I use those. And that's why I said 90% of my garden is in a grow bag. But I also love these nursery pots. So fill it up to the level that you think it's gonna be. You can take the same pot your plant is in. I actually have an identical one right here. So what I'm gonna do is measure it out before I transplant it in there. Let me show you. All right, so I already put a level of dirt in there, and just looking at how far it is on the level here, I'm probably gonna add just a little bit more. This is the same exact pot, but this is a great little trick if you don't know this one. And that's gonna be about perfect level right there. So now I'm gonna leave that in there while I fill up the outside edge of where the pot sits. All right, so I got the dirt level lined up to that pot in there. Again, you can use the same pot your plant is in, but it's just easier when you have no plant in there while you're trying to transplant. Whoa, look at all those roots. Very healthy, starting to wrap around the plant. Last thing I'm gonna do is this inoculant. This is mycorrhizae. It actually forms a beneficial relationship with the root system of the plant. So I like to do this to basically everything that I transplant and repot. And it's gonna help it not deal with root or shock or transplant shock. Now, watch this. We're gonna slowly lift this out. It's compacted nice and even. And you have a perfectly exact hole for your plant. And just like that, it's in its pot. You can fix it up, bang the sides a little bit. And now it's on to the final step, time to water. With container gardening, it requires a lot more frequent waterings than you would having a raised bed or plants in the actual ground. So with more frequent waterings, you really have to understand the watering situation and specific needs of the plants that you want to grow. So do a lot of research, Google it. For coleus, they do like to stay wet most of the time. You never want to really ever let a container dry out. That's going to be detrimental to the roots of your plant, and they will suffer and hurt from that. I've done it, trust me. I've made every mistake in the world over the years. So with watering, you can also, since I just potted this, I can feel the weight of the pot, and I can basically know like if it needs water or not. and through the days I can lift the pot, and you're just gonna have to manhandle things or handle it like a woman out here when you garden. But you feel the weight, and if it feels light, it needs water. You can also do the finger test. A lot of people say stick your finger 2 inches down, and if it feels dry down there, then it's more than likely needs water as well. And you know, in the summer months, I water a lot more, sometimes twice a day. And then in these winter months, like we're having now, it's maybe every 3 to 4, up to a week that I water plants. You can also invest in a moisture meter. These are awesome. Again, everything we are talking about, Amazon link down below. Please check that out. I have everything you're ever gonna need to want and need for gardening. So you take your moisture meter and you put that in your plant, and it can take a lot of the guesswork out of it for you. And actually this one has a light meter and a pH meter, which is pretty cool. But right now, it tells me that I need water here. So these are fairly inexpensive and cheap on Amazon, but that's a big lifesaver and huge help for you. I like to let water sit out for 24 hours that I use from my hose because I'm crazy. And I also want the chlorine to evaporate out. It's not good for your plants. I take this very seriously. So this water's been sitting out for a while, poured it into this pot, and I don't like to use the hose directly on them, so give them a good drink. It's you usually want to give a plant about 10 to 15% of the water based on the pot size. So like for example, you have a 10-gallon pot, you want to give that plant a gallon of water approximately. Another bonus tip with the container gardening is the portability of it. I love to move my pots around so they get the most sun or more shade if they need it, especially in the winter months because the sun really travels far to the south. So I move things through the yard all day long, and it's kind of like a workout to me too. So if you don't like to lift things or move things, then maybe container gardening is not for you. If you learned a thing or two, feel free to drop it down below and let me know what other garden videos you would like to see. I have so much stuff I could teach you guys. So until my next garden video, follow your dream and keep on gardening.